Hello and welcome to our 21st Communications Room Talk. And we are very happy to have a guest with us from very far away from Germany, at least, from California, from the Pacific Coast. And
Hello.
hi, Xanthi Soriano is Director of Communications for the Elk Grove Unified School District. And we are happy to have you with us, that you will take the time to discuss with us a few topics.
I'm very happy to be here, and thank you very much for the invitation. So I'm thrilled to take part in your communications room. I work, yes, for the Elk Grove Unified School District. We're the 5th largest school district in California. We have, we serve over 63,000 students, and we have 67 schools that we're responsible for. 9 high schools, 9 middle schools, 42 elementary schools. And just to give you a sense, the average size of a high school is around 24 to 2,700 students. And our middle schools are around 1,800 to 2,000 students, and our elementary schools range from about 800 to 1,000 students. So lots of souls that we're watching after on a daily basis and providing excellent learning to. So, but I'm glad to be here. I love what the topics that you are bringing forward in communications, and I look forward to sharing some information and also to learning some more information as well.
Yeah, and we are eager to learn from you as well, and together provide information to those who view our programs regularly. As a starter, the numbers are very impressive, and I can imagine that it is a real challenge to think about something like a joint spirit or joint purpose. But before you start talking a little bit about a joint purpose for such a huge school district, what was your purpose to join in here today?
Thank you. No, my purpose really, I love communications. I've lived in that. I became a teacher as well. And I think I think my strength in teaching came from my communications experience. So definitely, if anybody plans to be a teacher out there, communications is definitely a building tool that you can utilize. But in coming and seeing your show and hearing the topics that you're addressing and the audience that you're bringing in with global leaders, people who have a perspective that is a large perspective, is something that we need in our district. We serve not only 63,000 students, but that means that there are families out there. There's probably about 150,000 families that we're impacting. And they all come from a variety of cultures and backgrounds. And so for us to be able to have that global perspective is truly helpful. We speak in our district, we have about 118, 120 different languages that are spoken. So making sure we're also, our communications it takes global perspectives into consideration is very important for us. We have a lot of new immigrants from Afghanistan, as well as from our southern borders from Mexico or Central and South America, who are also coming into our district and wanting to make sure families are connected. Understanding different cultural perspectives on education is really important. And so I learn from your guests and from you on things that those families are also coming into our district and wanting to share with us. So it's very helpful.
Yeah, so that's great to hear, and also great or fascinating to learn about your understanding of communication that you bring actually to our round. And you just mentioned communication is relevant from various angles actually then for your area of work. So for the teachers who are communicators on the one hand side, for yourself as a communicator for the school district, and also having, yeah, all three of us, I think, having this purpose of communicating and and bringing the potential of communication to life. And that's maybe a question: how did this change anyhow for you during the last months, or it's not just a few months now, it's 18 months or longer that we had with this crisis and pandemic we are dealing with?
Oh yeah, a lot of things have changed for us with regard to communication, and one of the topics too, not just being a communicator as a teacher, but as a leader with all of our principals, our school principals, our site administration, their communication skills really needed to step up because we no longer had that. You know, a lot of communication is also body language, and that means, but you have to be in person to really be able to see that and to understand that. And having COVID and being online and only seeing a face, all of our leaders in our district had to learn how to better communicate without that face-to-face or in-person interaction that really lends itself to communication. So through voice, through writing, through doing videos, we had to use everything to be able to really convey what we wanted to convey as either a leader, where from a crisis standpoint, letting people know things are going to be okay. This is how we're going to do things. Letting staff know that their feelings and the things that they're going through is tough, but keeping everybody motivated and inspired was something that was challenging for our leaders, and communication played a big role in that. And then I think then for teachers, yes, learning how to use a whole new communication tool to deliver their lessons was something that was big and new. We had 1-star kindergarten teacher. She's wonderful, Miss Brittany Kissinger is her name, and she is just a phenomena on all of the online stuff. She loves it. She does a wonderful job. She's engaging. She sort of embodies all of the things that we want to see in communications, but she's a teacher. So it was wonderful to see her and to also share her knowledge in combining communications and teaching. So a lot of things learned throughout COVID, but I'd say motivation was key. And then, we've had to deal with purpose as well for a lot of people who were looking at resigning, or not resigning so much, but retiring. That there was a time for retirement.
Okay, and people that retire means that new people are coming in, and then you may have a kind of, I wouldn't say clash, but at least somehow coming together purposes of different generations, which makes it even more interesting, given that you have those many different cultures as well on your plate. So then it's, so to say, a multi-dimensional thing to come to a common platform for a common mindset and a common understanding of what you want to do and reach.
Absolutely. As we saw people, taking their retirement, and some of it was technology driven. Some people just didn't feel comfortable with teaching in this kind of a format, and it was just very overwhelming for them. And they were near time for retirement anyway, so they went ahead and selected that. But then we also gained a whole new generation of teachers coming in with technology skills, and that openness to learn a new platform to deliver messages and to deliver what the lessons, and to engage and to work with students in this new environment. So yes, we lost some of our great people, great teachers who have years of experience teaching, but we also gained new people with different perspectives, especially different cultural perspectives, and new innovative ideas as well when it comes to what we do in education. So it's good. Can't say it was terrible, but I think we all learned.
Yeah, that's interesting what you say, particularly the perspective of that's also, I think, a topic Mark and I elaborated on in the past, that communication actually brings this opportunity then to create new things from dialogue, from exchange, from interactive formats. And the question maybe is, if you have so many cultures, you have a lot of diversity, of course, in this communication in your district. And how do you see, is it actually a benefit then in this, to have this diversity, multitude of perspectives, then basically in every communication that happens in the schools, for example?
Yes, and it's difficult. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's difficult talking to multiple people or making sure our messages really resonate with different audiences. And so, trying to be simple sometimes can be challenging, knowing that different kinds of messages resonate with people in different ways. And then also trying to make sure everyone at the same time is informed about important things also makes it a little bit difficult. But just from a pure language standpoint, we have a rule in California that if you have a population 15% or more that speak another language, that you have to cater your communications broadly to that culture as well, or that language. So, and we have that with Spanish in some of our areas. So oftentimes we have to make sure things are translated for Spanish as well as in English. But we only have 4 predominant languages that meet that criteria. Spanish is the top one. Hmong and Vietnamese are 2 other languages that we will often translate into. But then online, what we were seeing with COVID was families who were really disconnected, and we had to do several things to connect them, from our website to our email system to phone systems. Get them connected was really critical. But then, thank goodness, we had Google Translate, because there's no way we could translate all of the different languages to keep people connected. But we were able to use their Google iTools, so that messages that we put online on each web page, a person could just click it and they'll get Pashto, they would get Tagalog, they could have it translated into Farsi or translated into Chinese, Mandarin. So it's not perfect, but much more easier. And people really appreciated that. To receive the information that we had to share, especially if it was about the COVID virus and the kinds of things that we have to make changes to, our program change, calendar changes, you name it, everything we had to use. We used the website extensively to communicate and use those translation tools. And we found other translation tools as well, to just keep communication going.
Cool. And thanks God we have those technology options at hand. Yeah. Think about 10, 15, 20 years ago, that would have been much more of a mess than the opportunity that it is today. And I'm convinced that it is an opportunity. And I'm convinced that, of course, we had to do those things much faster than we thought we would do. This digitalization of communications and all that stuff. We were talking about it, but we did not really dare to take the effort to move quickly. And now all of a sudden we had to move quickly, and then we find out, oh, there are opportunities in there. And of course, challenges, like you said, the missing body language in teaching, which is, of course, something that can turn out to be a huge challenge for people. And then other people discover their talent, like you said, your Miss Kissinger. And I had a similar experience because I'm doing some work pro bono work for a foundation, and they bring professional music teachers into kindergartens and grammar schools, and then they had to find their way to keep in touch with the kids, and it was rather similar. My experience, interestingly, was that teachers who are non-digital natives, let me put it in that friendly way, several of them discovered a huge talent to be very entertaining and engaging online, which I would never have expected from us digital non-natives. I would have expected much more from the younger ones, but in this case, it was more the digital non-natives who turned out to be talents. So very interesting developments, and bringing it back to the communications thing. The more complex and challenging the situation is, I think the more important it is to come to that common understanding and mindset in the community or in an organization you are in, because otherwise I assume you would be lost.
Yeah, and this was something that we focused on was whenever we delivered a district message, we coupled it with a video. So knowing that when people read things, they're reading in their own mind, and so whatever context they have, depending on their
Right.
mood or where they're coming from, they'll
Yeah.
translate it
Yeah.
in their own way. And so we wanted to make sure we didn't lose context in our messages, and so we actually put video to it. So we read the message out loud to build in that context as well. And then the other thing we had to do with our writing was to adjust to the different languages, meaning writing in a way that if you were to translate it, you wouldn't lose context also.
Yeah.
So every language has its nuance of using verbs in certain ways, or nouns and pronouns and all of these things. So trying to write very specific and simple in English without big abstract concepts, and being careful about idioms and things like that was really important. But that visual part was critical in our communications. So very helpful.
Yeah, I can assume, because it's indeed the tone of the voice, the kind of emphasis you put to different words
Mm-hmm.
that narrows the possibilities to interpret. Yeah? And that
Yeah, correct.
should help a lot. Going a bit deeper into it, if you allow, having those many different, let me put it, communities consisting of different languages and different heritage. There's something that we see in Germany that is what I call a falling apart into tribes who work against each other, or emphasize that they are the most important ones and all the others are wrong and do not know anything and things like that. Have you something similar? Of course, racism is an obvious thing that we all know. Sorry to say that, but is there anything more into it that you could share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the last 2 years, it was a really interesting shift that we experienced, and I think a shift for the better. Of course, our last administration was an administration that was very built upon separating people and tearing communities apart, from the standpoint of yes, the idea of tribal concepts, othering concepts, you belong over here versus over here. So what was at risk was that sense of belonging. And so in coming into a new administration, and just happening to be in California, we strive to build a strong cultural fabric, a strong social fabric where everyone belongs. But at the same time, it's difficult to get away from just blanketing everything as well. And so we've really worked internally with professional development, with looking at how can we better understand cultures so that we're not putting people in different buckets, you know, over here, these people go over here and these people over here yet. And then instead create a sense of belonging for everyone into our school district, that everyone belongs in our school district and everyone has the access to a wonderful educational experience in our district, or should have that experience. And then how do we do that without being having a blanketed approach of just, you know, saying open our doors and everybody comes in and everybody's welcome. We need to make sure we also invite people in who may not feel welcome because of having been put to the side and marginalized in the past. And so that's something, a big task of ours that we've undertaken. Yes, racism has played a significant role in our district and in our community for the past few years, where I think because of that blanket approach, we didn't necessarily, our eyes weren't open to situations that were occurring where there were racist situations. And so we've removed those blinders, and we've been removing those blinders so that we can see and we can recognize when there's pain and when there's hurt from groups who don't feel like they belong, that we make sure we're making a concerted effort to invite them to be part of us and what we feel we need to do to be able to better serve them from an educational standpoint. And that means looking at our systems, looking at our policies and saying, what do we need to change? What can we do better so that people aren't pushed off to the sides, that we're meeting their needs and we're meeting our students' needs, families and students, where they are, and based on and making sure we're giving them the support that they need. We've done a lot with equity, our equity work. I think COVID showed us that there were a lot of inequities in our students' homes compared to other students. You know, you see a screen of students, but you also get to see into their homes, and you can definitely see that there's you know, people with advantages and disadvantages. And so how can you work with all of them to make them feel like one cohort, one family, one class? And then at the district level, how do we work with all of those groups to make sure everybody feels together? Teachers, just like students, they all want to have that sense of belonging. And so we're working hard to look at that. And one of the concepts that we've taken into consideration is there are universal approaches and there are targeted approaches. I know from my marketing days, there's a lot of targeted things you could do with marketing, but we're looking at what's called a targeted universalism, where we're striving towards one big goal, but we recognize that not everybody has the same resources or supports to meet that goal. And so how can we target our systems or the things that we need to do to help support those people?
That sounds very great. And I'll keep all my fingers crossed that you will get along with that, because I think that's one of the huge questions, not only of your school district, but of many societies today. How to come to enabling that sense of belonging for everyone. That's one of the biggest questions, I would say. And I really like that concept of the targeted universalism, because it says we have, let me put it in other words, we have a common North Star based on ethical standards, probably. And so we have an ethical fundament basis, and on that basis we take a more or less casuistic approach, let me put it that way, which means case by case approach, in order to show every person that he or she is respected as deserved, right?
Absolutely. And then with that, you know, even still having a universal approach, it keeps everybody together. That yes, we're going to work with maybe our English language learners with more programs that they might need for their math. Maybe part of looking at targeted universalism is also just identifying where we need to have those supports for our students, and based on the whatever it is that's impeding their success. So we want to look at, from a data standpoint, what's going on, and then go in and provide the programming that we need to do and or supports we need to provide so that we can remove those barriers. And then together we're going to head towards that goal, that North Star that we want to achieve, whether it's 100% proficiency in math or reading, or if it's everybody having that sense of feeling that they've had an opportunity to participate in an athletic program or in an advanced placement course or an honors course. They've all had that. They've all been given what they need to try to either enter those things or take advantage of those opportunities as well. That's what we want to try to achieve towards doing.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I just want to mention this because for me it comes a bit back also to the point we started our discussion with the purpose topic, and we started with the individual purpose, and now we come somehow to the collective purpose, and this targeted universalism. It sounds a bit like there are islands maybe of purpose that are aggregated in this community, and my question is a bit, how did you do this in practice actually? How did you identify these islands and or for this targeted universalism? And how do you build these communities in concrete ways? It sounds a bit like it's a lot of community building work included in that too.
Absolutely. And yeah, the how-to is something that is very interesting for our district. And I would say definitely we're not going this alone. There's no one person in the district who's responsible for building this. This takes everyone because it's a mind shift. It's having an outward mindset of how we're going to do things on everybody. It's taking away those silos. I know you had talked about silos in the past, and it's removing the silos. That communications in my role, yes, I might be the communications department, but we need to help using the tools of communications, multiple departments to try to achieve what we're doing with targeted universalism. So a few years back, there were a couple of things that we integrated into our school district. We brought in what's called a family and community engagement program into our district with the intent of growing that. And family and community engagement is simply that. It's working with families at the school sites and helping them be engaged with their students. We see a lot of disengagement, as kids get older. And so how do we rebuild those things so that parents really have a role in the education of their children all the way till graduation? Then we also brought in another component, which was educational equity, to really look at what kinds of systems do we need to change, what kinds of policies or practices and procedures do we need to adjust so that we have a better, more equitable approach towards education. And that's that removing barriers for groups, for students, for people who just need certain supports in order for us to reach the goals that we want as a district, where every kid is graduating on time, and every kid is excelling and striving towards a college career and life readiness. That's kind of our big goal. Are all of our students getting those? Getting that, having the access to that and the resources that they need to get there. And then I think just, internally with then as we look at all of our different programs, how do we work together to meet those objectives that we have set forward? So really it's been tearing down a lot of silos. It's been getting more of a sense of group, working as a group, to achieve some things, all centered on wanting to make sure our students are achieving, at their greatest potential, if not, beyond potential.
Yeah, great. I mean, tearing down silos is something that we have been working on since we
Mhm.
started our careers as communicators, most probably. And the good thing is that today, with those technical developments and with the need to rethink, as you said, when Corona came in, many things had to be questions whether you can still continue doing them or whether you have to change. So, given this situation, there is, I think, the highest chance ever to really overcome those silos and really come to a kind of a fruitful, empathetic dialogue that is then more than just corporate communications, but really bringing different people from different whatever backgrounds or tasks together to work on the same topic into the same direction. Let me put it that way.
Yes, yes. And as a communicator, one of the things that my learnings in communications has been to really listen a lot to what other people are saying and to what each of the different groups are saying, because my responsibility is to share our messaging. And so I have to really have a good understanding of the heart of people and what kinds of challenges they're facing, what kinds of things they want to try to do, their dreams, what are they striving for. And for us and for me as a communications, it's critical to just listen, so that I can then further share their perspectives in a lot of our messaging that we're doing, because and then try to aggregate the different things that I'm hearing, because they're not that they're different, they're just perspectives shared in different ways, but they're all very similar in wanting to have a sense of purpose, wanting to have a sense of belonging, wanting to be recognized. And so, but everybody goes about it in a little bit of a different way, or they're hoping for a bit of a different way to do that. Generationally, there's different approaches. And so just as a communicator, especially with COVID, I think the lack of motion that we had, we have a lot of energy always on our campuses when kids and students are on our campuses. So COVID gave us a time to actually have a reduced amount of just activity and really hear what's going on in the hearts and minds of people, and what their sense of purpose is, both from an educational standpoint, their work standpoint. And so it's taking that information and then putting it into communications that we can use from a messaging, from a strategic standpoint, knowing what the needs are now. And then I think with targeted universalism, that it works both in the classroom from a program standpoint, but it's also working in our recruitment efforts. So when it comes to recruitment, hiring, retention, all of the internal communications that we need to really build, we can also use that concept of targeted universalism as well.
Great. So this is
So
really
I fully.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to say I fully agree with this perspective on the importance of listening. What Mark and I sometimes experience in the business environment, that there is not that much patience somehow of people wanting to listen, bring up some time for this, or time to spend also time on more this reflection mode, I would say. Is this something you experience too? Or is there more patience because people maybe are more passionate for the topic and their children? So
It's something though that you asked, what kinds of things that we're doing to try to make these changes come about, and that's another component. I wouldn't say that I was the best listener either a couple of years ago, but our district, we from our leadership, our superintendent brought forward a program through the Arbinger Institute, and it's called Outward Mindset. And he wanted to just kind of see, what do we all think about this? And it was it's really a tool to really kind of look inside yourself and see how you're effective or not effective working with other people. Because it's how do we build a good team? When we're working at the top level of the district, can we be a good team? Can we break down our own silos? Can we learn to step on each other's toes, gracefully, to be able to accomplish big tasks, and big goals? And it was through that training that, in fact, there's even a specific training on listening skills, and I think there's other management programs that do similar things, but this particular one just really, it because it was so focused on ourselves. It wasn't sort of an organizational thing that we were doing per se. It just said, we all agreed, yes, this is something that we need. And many of us who dove into the work, we started first with our personal lives, before we even started applying it to our professional lives. And I'd say that it had a huge impact on all of us.
Yeah. So that is, again, very interesting. It underlines our thesis that it starts with yourself. And if you are able to reflect, then you will be able to take the next step, and then you will be able to build up a kind of a common purpose, because you were able to think about what is your individual purpose. And this is something that especially Hartmut has brought in and emphasizes very frequently. And from there, it's then easy to take that step-by-step or case-by-case approach, because you are all on the same mindset page. And that's something, again, what I think has helped, obviously, all of us on your side of the Atlantic, on our side of the Atlantic, that we were in the need to reflect, which more than ever for most of the people who today live on Earth. So that we had the chance to rediscover the quality, as I said, of listening, of understanding ourselves in order to take the next step. And therefore, I think trying to already summarize the whole thing a little bit, it shows that even communication starts with yourself, to make yourself able to appreciate others in the way they think and talk and act, with the purpose to come to a joint understanding that then helps you to become really efficient and effective in what you do. And it looks like it doesn't matter whether it's a school district or a company or whatever kind of organization. It looks like the challenges in principle concerning communication are similar, and therefore the opportunities and chances are similar as well.
Yeah, I mean, authenticity is critical, and authenticity is something odd that you really can't fake it.
Yeah, sure.
And so, and I think a lot of times in my role, people say I'm the voice of the district. And I really take that seriously, because if that's the case, it's a big responsibility that I have, because I want to make sure that the voice both resonates with me personally, and I believe in what we're doing as a district. But then I also have to make sure that I do believe in what we are doing as a district. So it's not just about me. It's about making sure I'm in sync with where everything is going. And I have to push back sometimes too if I see things that are out of sync, because if I need to deliver the messages, it's gotta resonate, and it has to be aligned. So our one of the things that our superintendent says that I love is he has a strong belief that until the adults get better at what they do, until then, our students, it will only be until then that our students will get better. So it's really putting a lot of the responsibility we have not on our students, it's on us, that when we can become better at what we do, whether it's communications, teaching, administration, then we will see those performance enhancements in our own students. So we're learning a lot about culture. We're learning a lot of how to invite people so that they have that sense of belonging. We're learning a lot about our own purpose and making sure that we're sharing that with other people, because that's part of that mindset culture. And so I think with his direction and things, there's a lot of room to grow with that concept.
So that were already great final words, I would say. So thank you, Xanthi, very much for the insight. And I think we have learned a lot about differences and parallels of our two worlds. Hartmut, what would you like to add for the closing?
Well, I can't add much more. I also like the idea of bringing the individual and the collective purpose in sync, and I fully agree that's the only way forward. And I think it's a great goal, probably for all of us to get there, so that we stand fully behind what we do, and it's also a topic of identifying with what we do, and this brings the passion across, and it helps to release the power of communication also in that respect. So thank you very much for joining our session today, for your very inspiring contributions, and thanks to all our visitors, our listeners, our followers for this 21st session of the Communication Zoom. Thanks a lot, and see you again soon on this channel.
Talk to you soon. Thank you very much.